Hello again. We finished the exercise, but now we need to present this. As you can see, my Excel spreadsheet it's a mess. So now I need to transform all this data into a Word document, a PDF document presenting all these results. And I cannot present the information like this. So I need to prepare all this information to be suitable to be presented in a paper or in academic essay. The first thing I need to do is to make the changes I want in the table. So I need to make all this information presentable. First thing I will just format the table. I will eliminate the first ISO column. I will follow some rules here. Format everything like it was in the original table. Oops. This is just format. You can use all the format you want. I'm just here. Um, I'm just creating here some formats to ease to make easier to visualize the data. And now I will it's just styling the table. I'm creating some divisions here that make it easier to understand what's in each column. I will format the table to be presentable. You can learn on how to format the table in Excel. Looking at Google, should see some tutorials on Google on how to do this. It's not difficult. You just need to see some tutorials. And I will just create this new um, blank Word document, and I paste this here. So now I need to reduce the size of the table because it's too big. Copy and paste information from um, from Excel to Word is not very nice because tables are not this do not look exactly the same as they do on Excel. So there's a lot of rearranging and reformatting once you copy everything. It's annoying this, but is all we have. So I'm just formatting this. In brief, it will be over. Okay, now I have the table 1. Okay, I have the first evidence. So the first thing is to choose a title. So I will just format a little bit the document. I like to use Times New Roman 12. So I will give a title for this essay or for this work. Try to be something descriptive that give you the general idea on how to present the information, but also be creative. Try to to find in some light or give an impression over all your analysis using a title. The title is very important for any work, be a movie, a song, or a paper. So you need to choose a good title. Um, so COVID is now COVID-19. Mm, um, so and the effect of better. There is a better. How health systems are doing in the COVID-19 crisis. How are doing? National health systems doing or performing is better. Always choose specific names and terms to refer to. It's much better than use general like doing or, and you always need to put your name. Introduction, you need always to structure your presentation. The first thing in any academic text is the introduction. So you need to, in this exercise, we were invited to analyze the number of cases and deaths by the COVID-19 virus in how many countries? In 20 different countries. All over the world. So the first part, the introduction, is where you describe a little bit the analysis corresponds to both univariate and bivariate exploratory analysis. The exercise, avoid the practice to both. You always try to avoid repeating words. Is not a good rule for writing. So exercise I already have used here. So I use practice. Analysis I use just once here, but try to avoid repeating many times. The practice correspond to both univariate and bivariate explored analysis. Focus on unveiling patterns and emphasizing how different countries perform regarding avoiding deaths once the cases are identified. This is a brief introduction. During the analysis, we found that this is a conclusion. So the first, the introduction is just explain what you're going to do. First, we need to do an analysis and to explain how the analysis is done. The analysis, or firstly, we will examine both the absolute and relative distribution of cases and deaths to identify those countries where the problem is more salient. We will use or employ both statistical measures and graphs to illustrate our main findings. Secondly, we will let's look. Secondly, we inquire on the relationship between cases and deaths, and between the rates of cases and deaths on the one hand, and the overall mortality rate on the other. So I have the methodology. I'm in this introduction. What I do is I just explain a little bit the exercise and how I done. And so two. The analysis of cases and deaths. Table 1 presents the data on confirmed cases and deaths by April 1st, 2012 for the 20 countries selected. As we can observe, it is ordered by the raw number of cases. United States was in this date the country with most cases, doubling the second Italy, doubling Italy, the second. But okay, so this is it. You start analyze variable by variable, and then you can describe. Before going to the United States, specifically going one by one, you can try to put here the average, the median, the mean. The average number of cases is, and then you go back to your data, 42,160, 42,160, and you can tell, but the spread is large since the standard deviation. You can learn about standard deviation watching the videos that are online on Studium. So watch the videos. Again, watch the videos. You need to watch the video. If you don't watch the video, you won't learn a lot of these concepts I'm working with here in this exercise, okay? But the spread is large since the standard deviation is higher than the mean. And then now I put the number 53,018 cases. These numbers reveal meaningful differences of spread, difference of prevalence of the disease, on the countries, or among the countries compared here. So now we gave a large picture about what is the pattern. The pattern is you have an average of 2,166 cases, but you have a huge spread. You have an enormous variation of the standard deviation is 53,018 cases. These numbers reveal a meaningful difference, large differences in terms of prevalence of the disease. So you have the United States with 212 cases or 13 cases, 1,000 cases, and you have Norway with just 4,800. So you have huge differences between countries. Okay, so the first thing you need to express this distribution. You need to express that there are many differences, and you can reinforce the country, and then now you you take this and you keep the country, or United States was in this date the country with most cases, and then you can repeat the figure here: 2,973 cases, doubling the Italy, the second. The last, or the nation with the lower number of identified cases, identified observations, is Norway with just 4,863. I'm changing here dots to commas because in English this is the case. The problem is that in Excel things get messy, and I'm just changing here, and you should change it everything also. You can do it stupidly like I'm doing here, or you can just select the table and Control F, and here search and replace, and then replace dots with commas, and then next. Oh, I'm just selecting here. Sure, there is an easier way to do this, but let's do this. That is easier than replacing by hand everything. Okay, now I just, okay. So now I have the right format, and then you go on and comment everyone, and then you can drop here, for example, the graphs. So figure 1, cases of, or COVID-19 cases by country, and then you can just come here, copy this, and paste it right here. I would do something different. I would just delete this, create a table, insert table, a table like this, and then I would copy this and paste here. So I can now just change the size, and put both cases, and let me see what is the size of this. Let's do by hand and put them. So I have here cases and deaths, and COVID cases and COVID-19 absolute or raw number of cases by country. I can just take these lines off, sin borde, and then source on elaboration using Johns Hopkins University data. Okay, so once you times the Roman, I don't know why this thing. It's important to maintain a certain style. So if I start tables and figures with the name in bold, I keep this style all over the text. So I start commenting this. So the idea is you structure your data, you give a brief introduction telling what it is, you start with the analysis, first the general pattern, then you go looking into each one of the individual variables. So I would start describing all variables here, and then I would explain figure 1, COVID raw number, and figure 2. I just can copy here and paste below. And then here I can put relative number of cases and by country. I just go back to my Excel spreadsheet. Let me see, this was the absolute. Now I have the relative. What do I have here? Okay, it was the relative. It doesn't matter. I can just change them and no problem. Change here and it's okay. The same for deaths. So now I have the figure one with the absolute number and the figure 2 with the relative numbers, and then I start analyzing and compare first. For example, a third from absolute to relative, or the weight of population the disease without the weight of population, comparing the relative numbers. So now I start comparing the relative numbers, and I can start with the absolute numbers, the raw numbers, and then the relative numbers. So I can compare the two, etc. And I can have a fourth topic saying how cases and deaths are related. and then you can explain um, how health systems are um, being able to avoid deaths once um, cases are diagnosed. So this is the real question behind um, or how well or how what's the performance, the idea is the performance behind this, and then now you try to argue based on the rates. So here you analyze the rates, for example, what are the more the countries with the higher rates to the lower rates, and then um, you use the figure 3. You use the scatter plot. So um, cases and or always COVID-19 cases and deaths by country. And you should tell about the outliers of Spain and Italy being outliers, being cases that they are so different from the rest that when they are taken out of the equation, they really show us a different pattern. So let's focus on these two graphs. Let's make the same thing, just copying and pasting this. Always, any graph or table, you need to have a title, you need to have the graph, and you need to have a source below this. There is many different ways um, to um, to formulate this or to design a graph, but these elements are needed, and I will put both, and I will put, for example, a legend here. For example, here A, all cases, all countries, and B, without Spain and Italy. So now we have a page that shows us exactly how the exclusion of Spain and Italy changes the result. And I comment this, I make all the comments, I write down all the comments, and afterwards I just I add a final remarks or concluding remarks or conclusions. You can write down this as you wish, and references. If you use most academic work, you use reference, use literature, so you need to quote this here and include the references here. We'll have a session on this, on how to use references, but this is how it's done. So what do I do here? I just started to write down an essay based on this data. I present the data here. I first create a title, I identify myself, and I create a brief introduction explaining what I will do. And then I start analyzing the data. First analyzing the raw numbers, the distribution of cases and deaths, the raw numbers. Then I go first to the general. I describe the distribution, the mean the spread of the cases, the highest value, the lowest value, to let people that are reading know what are the difference among countries, what's the typical number of cases, etc., and to warn them about the heterogeneity of the countries that I'm exploring here. So once I finish this, the general pattern, I start to explain each case individually and how it relates to the average and how they are distributed. And for example, how they relate to population. Most populated countries are those with most cases and deaths in absolute terms. Then I can use these graphs to do so. If I comment this, and figure one shows the countries that are above the mean, the world average, and those that are below the world average, etc., etc., etc. I can comment on this, and I make use of these figures and this data to emphasize my analysis and to demonstrate that there is this spread, these countries that are the largest, the country with the largest numbers, etc., etc. So I go on with the relative numbers. I do the same. I explain what has changed, all this written, and I use the figure to articulate a narrative. The most important thing is you need to convince your reader of what are you of your findings, what of what you've learned doing the data analysis. So you need to write down in an orderly way. If you do it in a spreadsheet, as you most of you done in your exercise, um, me as a teacher, I can understand because I know the exercise, and I can do I can see what you do wrong and what you do right, and I can understand a little bit the process. But in order to do it right, you need to write down in an orderly way. So you need to create this kind of documents, uh, uh, presenting the data in an orderly fashion, in a sequential and logical narrative. You need to convince me, and you need to tell me a story. If you don't tell me a story, I won't understand anything. So this is the purpose of the exercise. So here is how it's done, and you need to comment on this. Okay. So this is it for now, and I hope you learn how to present data. Once you've analyzed, you need to make an effort to systematize everything you have done and present it logically and orderly, in a way that other people can understand your mental processes. It's not easy because you need to structure in another way, in a way that it can be understood. It's like telling a story to someone else. Okay, bye.